right, everybody. Welcome in. Oh, shoot. I just bumped into my thing. My camera's going crazy. We got a new setup a little bit here. I got a new camera. That's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But welcome in to Load the Box. We're off to a hot start as I lay on my desk. It's because I'm so excited to talk about the Vikings and Seattle game with my co host, the wonderful, the marvelous, the exquisite Jack H. Day. Jack, before we get to how your week was, make sure you're following the show at LTB Vikings on the Twitter machine. Make sure Jack, who is on this side of me, and I'll remember that one of these weeks, make sure you're following him at Jack_H_Day, and then myself right up here at JHawthorne16, even though I just got a new phone last week and I haven't even logged into that account because I'm so focused on the Load the Box account. Just bringing you Vikings content, NFL content, any content that I can think of, really. And then I got a special hat on tonight that I'll talk about. But before we talk about the hats or the anything else, Jack Day, how was your week? How are you enjoying that number one victory royale?
I'm doing well. The weeks are always a little bit more fun. It's a lot easier getting up out of bed on Monday mornings after a Vikings victory. I know you feel the same way, and I'll say this too. You just brought up the fact you got a new phone, and I was ecstatic when you texted me and the little blue bubbles popped up instead of the green bubbles for the first time, and you finally converted to the iPhone family. So just wanted to welcome you to the iPhone family. You were one of, I think I have one or two other friends left that I talk to or text regularly. So you were one of the last ones that didn't have an iPhone. So it was little pleasant surprise after a nice victory on Sunday. But yeah, it was a fun one to watch. It was cool seeing US Bank completely sold out. Cool seeing the mic'd up stuff with Justin Jefferson kind of getting to experience what he should have been able to experience his rookie year, hitting that gritty in front of a sold out crowd. It was awesome. So I know you felt the same way, but it was an entertaining game. It was kind of close right away. The defense didn't really decide to show up in the first half. The second half was completely different. And the offense just continues to ball out with QB1 leading the way.
Absolutely, and it's funny that you bring up the defense deciding to show up because I try to have like a stat section of the ticker at the bottom, and then I also try to have like a headlines from the game section. And I think the quote was something along the lines of like Vikings defense steadies itself as they hold on to beat Seattle. So it was nice to see them not give up any points. They should have given up what 3 points on a miss because they missed a field goal with about 12 minutes to go. Oh no, with less than 12 minutes because the last time they scored was with about 12 minutes to go. But it was nice to see that defense, after giving up 17 points on 3 drives, come out in the second half especially and shut out Russell Wilson. They started to get some pressure in there. They started playing the run a little bit better. And this was the big thing for me. The offense didn't really slow down as bad as I would have thought it would have going into that second half. They came out, they stayed aggressive. I know some people were booing because we kicked a field goal instead of going forward on like a 4th and 2 or a 4th and 1 near the end zone 12, in that game. But I was one of those people that was upset about that, but you live and you learn. We ended up winning the game. We didn't give up any points after that either. So good defensive performance because the way that game started, it looked like it was going to be a shootout. And then you look at the final score and it's only 17 points. I'm happy with that. I'm 100% happy with that. Good week to start the Vikings defense in fantasy, even though they only got me like 2 points. But it is what it is. I want to get into this hat really quick because after that first win, I think me and you are both kind of on cloud nine. And this ghost on my hat, it's not just because it's Halloween and it's spooky season and this is my dad hat to hand out candy in at my new house. It's also, this is the ghost of pessimistic Jack because I'm assuming he's dead, he's gone, and I don't think we're going to be seeing him for a while because I got a feeling the Vikings are going to keep this win streak going for a couple of weeks. So can you confirm, is pessimistic Jack dead, or do you think he's still got that little bit of a heartbeat on? Is he just on life support right now?
He's on life support because I think this Sunday is another critical game for the Vikings if they somehow. I think it seems like we don't really want to foreshadow too much, but it seems like both of us are. We're feeling confident again. I think we're both feeling good about this team. It's not like they got blown out in the first 2 games, and Cincinnati just turned around and absolutely embarrassed Pittsburgh, who, I mean, Pittsburgh has I know Big Ben, you can take that for what it's worth. There's a lot of people that don't really think he should be the quarterback of that team anymore, but there's talent all over, like kind of littered throughout that roster. And maybe Cincinnati. My dad commented in one of my podcasts that I did recently and said, "Hey, are we just ruling out the fact that maybe we talked about this too after that game, but are we just ruling out the fact that Cincinnati might actually be a halfway decent team because Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, they're balling out, but we don't need to talk too much about the those two teams in the AFC North. Obviously, we're going to be doing that here shortly about another team in the AFC North. But yeah, I think you can say that pessimistic Jack is slowly going out the door, and the optimism is starting to return.
Yeah, and it's a good feeling. We both did predict wins. I put my money where my mouth was. I put a bet down for us to win. We ended up winning that game, and everybody's happy. Everybody's riding cloud nine. It's an amazing feeling to get that first win of the season. And I just wish it would have happened 2 weeks ago. Oh, last week. But hey, all right. Patience is a virtue. We were patient. We got the first win, and now we got to talk about building on it. We'll get to that in a little bit, but I do want to spend some time on this Seattle game. But we have a packed show for you guys tonight. We've got Chris from Load the Box Browns joining the show. He's probably only like our fifth guest in the show's history, which like that's a big number, but it's not huge. But we've got him coming on to talk about the Browns and what we can expect there. But I want to talk about this offense more than the defense this week just because it really, my God, and Jeff Hawthorne's in the chat saying, tell Cook to take another week off, and also, this is what I want to hammer on, the O-line looks a lot better. The O-line, specifically, you can't spell O-line without Ollie, and Ollie Udo just looks out of this world good playing that right guard spot. Not to mention, as you know, the Ezra Cleveland and Bradbury, I would say, beside that, the left side of the line, the center to the left is kind of shaky, but it's manageable. But Brian O'Neill, Ali Udo having outstanding seasons 3 weeks into it, and the rest of them have been manageable, giving Kirk enough time to really sit back there and ball. And this is coming from not a Kirk Cousins guy. I am definitely a find your next QB, move off of Cousins, we shouldn't have extended him guy. I'm going to go ahead and just say it right now. That throw against the zero blitz, that looked just like what Joe Burrow did to us. That looked just like what Kyler Murray did to us. But now we did it to Seattle. And it was funny because we have brought up, we want a guy that can make that play. We want a guy like Kyler, or we want a guy like Joe Burrow. And of course, Colt comes out first win of the season and delivers that ball to KJ Osborne at a crucial point in the game. Jack, how impressed are you with Cousins? Because I know you're kind of a Cousins guy. You've started to get off the boat, but I'm imagining you're just completely engulfed back into the Cousins cult, and that you're 100% backing him again because he's played phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we've said, and I think you and I have both agreed on this, I know we both have a little bit different viewpoints on the whole Kirk Cousins situation, but one thing we both have always agreed on was get this guy an offensive line and he is going to ball. Like we already know he can put up stats. We already know he's an accurate quarterback from the pocket. We didn't know that he can deliver like off his back foot, like jump shots to striding KJ Osborne across the field. We haven't seen that. And that, like, I agree with you. That was one of the more entertaining and cool throws that I've seen Kirk Cousins make. And he's made some great throws while he's been here in Minnesota. But just kind of going back to your offensive line conversation, Ali Udo was thus like second or third highest graded player. And I don't really know how to look at offensive linemen because you don't really realize good offensive line play as much as you notice bad offensive line play. And I think over the last 3 years, we're just so used to bashing this offensive line and we're so used to bad offensive line play. But Ali Udo had like an 80.3 overall PFF grade, and Brian O'Neill still hasn't allowed a pressure all season long. So that right side of the line, I agree with you. Some good news out of Vikings practice today at TCO. It sounds like Rashad Hill had the day off. I don't think it was injury related. And Christian Darrisaw had his first full practice in I don't know how long, but Christian Darrisaw was out there at left tackle. That is a good sign for the future of this football team. I think anyone in their right mind would want to see what they got with that first round selection, especially when you see Rashawn Slater and Sewell balling out for the teams that drafted them. So that is a kind of a missing piece. Rashad Hill has stepped up. We've said this before. We like having Rashad Hill as a backup swing tackle on this team. but we don't know if he's the starter. Having said that, I don't know if it's necessarily time to just throw Darisaw out there when he's going to be going up against Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. That'd be a hell of a debut for a rookie. But a couple other things on this game. I think the offense really helped the defense in that second half. That throw that Kirk made that we just talked about was a 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 6 with like 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, where that kind of put the dagger in the Seahawks. There's a funny stat I saw on Twitter. There's yet to be a bird team to come into US Bank Stadium and leave the place with a victory. It's because they're just flying face first into the glass because they didn't see it there, and they're dropping dead right when they get there. I don't know if I should be making jokes or not about that, but
Nah, it's fine.
like I said, the cool thing too, going back and I just like looking at some of the PFF stuff. Obviously, I don't even think we have to mention this. Eric Kendricks, I believe, led the team in tackles for a 3rd straight week. We don't even have to bring that up anymore. You just kind of have to imagine that's going to be the case every single week. But, man, it was fun seeing Justin Jefferson have a good day. Tyler Conklin had a career day as well. He started to do something that I don't think either of you or I really expected him to do, because we were so excited for a very common phrase that you and I both use on the show, with Irv Smith Jr. being good in between the 20s. We learned that Tyler Conklin has a little bit more speed than I originally had realized. I'm not saying he was the next like TJ Hawkinson or the next Travis Kelce, but the guy was out there balling and he was consistently good on Sunday. And then Justin Jefferson is like through the first 3 weeks is the 2nd highest graded wide receiver behind only Devontae Adams in the entire NFL. So that's an exciting little nugget for the Vikings. And it's crazy to me that I just went through all of these guys and highlighting all these players, and we haven't even brought up Alexander Madison's name once. Alexander Madison shredded that Seattle defense, and it was fun watching that. I know there's people saying maybe we don't need Dalvin Cook. Stop it. Don't say that, because Dalvin Cook is still the lead back. He's still going to be a focal point for that offense. But I think with what we're seeing with Clint Kubiak, I'm going to end this with this after I say this, but what we're seeing with Clint Kubiak, maybe he can realize, hey, we don't need to feed Dalvin Cook as much. We can really utilize that. If they want to have 8 guys in the box, let's start to utilize that play action and take shots. We have playmakers all over this offense, and it's fun to watch. But I wanted to that kind of wraps up my thoughts. There's not too much on the defensive side of the ball. I will say one thing on the defensive side of the ball, and I will speak for the entire state of Minnesota when I say this. I think everyone that lives here, I guess I shouldn't say it like that because you're not in Minnesota, but all people watching the Vikings religiously have missed that Everson Griffin spin move. That was nasty. It was fun seeing that again. So he kind of brought a much needed spark to the defense in the second half. And that's what Everson Griffin has done for a decade for this football team, has brought that spark, brought that energy. It's fun seeing him still capable of doing that as a 34-year-old defensive end. But kind of throwing things back to you, that's kind of my final thoughts, and then we can kind of get on to the Browns. What do you think? I know you were livid. You weren't happy with Clint Kubiak at one point in the season. Has that changed at all? Because I think I've started to watch more of this offense, and some of the stuff he's drawing up, it's entertaining and it's working.
He is getting, so this was actually what I was about to bring up to you, and it's funny how it's all going to come together. It's going to be beautiful, just like this Viking season is about to come together and be beautiful. So Kubiak has started calling plays, especially this week, less run pass, holding penalty, run on 1st and 20. He called this game a little bit more pass heavy, a little bit more aggressive. And it makes me wonder, not that the team would be better without Dalvin Cook, but it brings me back to a Mike Zimmer quote from 3 weeks ago, where he said, Dalvin Cook is one of our best playmakers. The whole point of the offense is get the ball to your playmakers, so I'm assuming we're going to give him the ball a lot. And that was pretty much exactly how he phrased it. We want to get the ball to the playmakers, and Dalvin might be our best playmaker. Give him the ball. Just hand it to him. That's the easiest way to get it to him, right? But it makes me wonder if whenever we don't have Dalvin Cook, who is, Mr., everything to this team, it opens the playbook and the play calling up to where I think it kind of makes Zimmer and Kubiak say, maybe we should use the pass to help Madison establish the run rather than using Cook to help, establish Jefferson and Thielen. And I think that I like the way this game was called. There's a couple of things that I can, again, there was like a 4th and 1 or a 4th and 2 in the red zone that we didn't go for. It might have been towards the goal line. I can't remember, but it was in the red zone for sure because we came out and we kicked a chip shot field goal, and we made the field goal to go up 13 points. But that's a spot where I would have rather seen us go for it, get the touchdown, and make it a 3 possession game. So then it's like, okay, what other games are on? That's the kill shot, you know. Like I want to see us put teams away like that rather than just play to make it more difficult for them to come back. But I liked what I saw out of it. I would still like to see, and I think the offensive line, as high praise as we're giving it, I think that it's still limited in the amount of just like 7-second drops we can have where Cousins stands back there for as long as he wants. Oh, 7-step drops, excuse me. Just really deep drops, letting Jefferson and Thielen walk down the sidelines and into the middle of the field. I'd like to see out of it, but I don't know. I think that, like I said, the line is probably what the issue is, but Kubiak impressed me this week. And you know, I'm definitely not going to complain after we score 33 points and beat the Seahawks. And if Zimmer's defense can keep playing the way they played in the second half, things are going to get good. One last thing about this game that I've got. I'm so sick and tired of screaming at my TV with my entire family about how bad Bashaud Breeland is. And I thought this was the Cam Dantzler revenge game. I picked him to be my game ball, which we still have to do, but I picked him to be my game ball to get his revenge on DK Metcalf after he let him kind of embarrass him in the end zone last season. And what ends up happening, Jack? They don't even play him. And then he goes to Twitter and he craps on the team. But Bashaud Breeland continues to be PFF's worst rated defensive back in the NFL. He's like 108 out of 108 qualifying defensive players. It's awful. It's terrible. And I'm incredibly upset about it. So I'll let you get final thoughts in if you want to throw in anything else. I agree with you, by the way, about how happy I was to see Everson Griffin bust out that spin move. And also after he got that BS roughing the passer penalty, I loved seeing the Everson Griffin just dumbfounded face, because he's basically just a walking meme at this point for this state. But go ahead and fill some time basically, because I just had something pop up over here that I got to fix while the show's running.
Yeah,
or else we're gonna
is
go
it
off
the
air.
remaining time
Yes,
thing?
it
Yeah, I was gonna
was.
say,
So
okay,
I'm gonna fix that real quick.
Okay, perfect. I was gonna bring that up and try to do it in a smoother way than that, but I can kind of give some of my final thoughts, and I'll touch base on the dancer stuff too. It sounds just as if like it just seems like that's a situation that you don't want to get on Mike Zimmer's bad side. I don't know if that's necessarily an easy thing to do, but I know he can get angry with players and frustrated, but when you're doing it in an immature way, it just doesn't seem like it's going to sit well for me. They already had San Francisco reach out to the Vikings about a possible trade. I said on a show yesterday that I wouldn't be shocked if that ended up happening at some point, just because I don't think at the NFL level, people, especially like Mike Zimmer and this Vikings front office, I don't think they really want to play games. I don't Mike Zimmer doesn't really strike me as much of a fan of being on Twitter religiously either. So and going on back to Bashaud Breeland, I do know it's been frustrating because I think this fan base had high hopes for him, but it does sound as if he's playing a little bit banged up still. He has a couple injuries. I'm not saying that's necessarily an excuse for his poor play, but I'm not ready to throw the towel in 3 weeks into the season on a Super Bowl winning cornerback that has made some big plays under some of the brightest lights within this game. So I'm not ready to say goodbye to Bashaud Breeland yet. I know there's some fans that are very ready to do that, but I think we have to give him a little bit of time, and just this whole defense in general. I think you and I both had really high expectations for this defense, but it's even with all the veterans coming in, it still takes time for a defense on all three phases to completely gel together. And we really haven't seen that yet. They've struggled in the run game a little bit. Whenever Anthony Barr gets healthy, he's going to be a huge addition to that run support. You have Michael Pierce and Delvin Tomlinson essentially manhandling guys along the trenches. And then you give Anthony Barr, Nick Vigil, and Eric Hendricks kind of free holes to run into the backfield. I like the Vikings' chances at kind of getting better there. Daniil Hunter, I know his name didn't get brought up like regularly against Seattle, but I think he had like 7 pressures, 4 quarterback hurries, and 3 quarterback hits. So like no sack showed up on the stat sheet. I don't think he had a sack. I'm almost positive, but so no sack showed up on the stat sheet, but he was still getting pressure to Russell Wilson, which is huge. And we're going to talk a lot about some pass rushers that the Cleveland Browns have here shortly. But I think Garrett leads the league with 5.5 sacks. Danielle Hunter's at 4 sacks. And he didn't have a sack against Seattle. So he's right there. I think he's tied for third or fourth in the league with a total of 4 sacks. So that's good news. It kind of shows that Danielle Hunter is back to what he used to be, and that's huge news for this Vikings team. So
Yeah, he's been Hunto has been graded incredibly high this season. Not to mention he's been really good as well. It's not like he's just like there are some players that I think don't pass the eye test. Excuse me if my camera's moving a little bit. It's on a mount and everything, and it's a whole thing. We're developing, but some players don't pass the eye test, but they still grade out well in the PFF system. And I think that's why some people don't care about PFF ratings at all. And Hunter, I think, has passed the eye test this season. There were a couple plays this week where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to look at Danielle Hunter on this play instead of watching Wilson and seeing what happens. And he was getting double and triple teamed consistently. So, he's got a lot of respect from the league. Unfortunate that he didn't get a sack. I would have expected him to, but I mean, he's coming off a 3-sack game. Let's hope that he can get to Baker Mayfield in this upcoming week as we move on. And then, sorry, I'm finishing up something here with the Zoom stuff because I forgot that there's a time limit. And we should be good here in just 1 second. So
yeah, I can bring up one other topic that I found interesting that I have here. Just looking at QBRs across the National Football League, 3 current/former NFC North quarterbacks are currently leading the way. Matthew Stafford is the rated number 1 quarterback. Kirk Cousins is 2, and old Teddy Bridgewater is number 3. And it's so fun. Like, I know this is a Vikings show, but I think I speak for most of the Vikings fan base. Whether or not you thought Teddy Bridgewater was the answer at the quarterback position, I think I still speak for most people in Vikings territory that it is really cool seeing Teddy Bridgewater get yet another chance. Yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate how everything happened. He goes to the Jets, then they draft Sam Darnold. He loses his job there. Then he goes to Carolina. Or no, he went to the Saints
that season because I remember writing about how they should bring him back, the Vikings.
And then he went to Carolina, lost his job to Sam Darnold again. Now he's in Denver, and he's ranked 3rd in QBR. And by the way, he's doing that while he's leading the league with the most attempts beyond 20 yards, which is absolutely baffling to me because it was like Teddy's a dink and dunk quarterback. Kirk's a dink and dunk. And it's just like, wherever these stats are coming in from, I don't think it's accurate, but it's cool seeing Teddy ball out. Denver is, just like everyone expected, Denver and Las Vegas are at top of the AFC West right now and both sit undefeated. So
Kansas City's in last, but
yeah, it's really interesting start to the NFL season.
It really has been. It really has been. And speaking of interesting starts, oh wait, hang on. Did we do game balls? Did we just really quickly?
We can do that quick.
Really quick.
Defense. And I had offense.
Okay, so on the defensive side of the ball, I'm giving my game ball to I'm probably going to go Everson. You guys know by now. I like the feel good, the mushy, Everson Griffin swerves out of the way to hit a deal, comes back in. His snap count just keeps going up and up and up. So Everson Griffin getting that sack on Russell Wilson. It sucked that he got that penalty, but I think that he had a solid game.
Penalty.
Yeah, a very soft penalty. Apparently that's how high it was. It was terrible call, but it is what it is. It's the NFL. So I'm going Everson Griffin for the defensive game ball. Who would you give it to on offense, Jack?
So I had offense, and it's hard. This is a lot harder, I think, this side of the ball, because there's a few guys. It was great seeing Tyler Conklin step up. Kirk Cousins had yet again a phenomenal game. It's really hard for me not. I gave my game ball last week to Justin Jefferson, so I want to give it to Justin Jefferson again this week just because he hit the gritty in front of a sold-out U.S. Bank Stadium, led the team in receiving yards, broke another Randy Moss record. What was it? Fastest to 100 receptions, I believe, in franchise history. But I'm not going to do that. Even though I picked Justin Jefferson, I think that would be a valid answer. But I can't not give it to Kirk Cousins. The way he played, what I saw, like you and I just talked about, that throw to KJ Osborne, he was not only was he doing what he normally does with a clean pocket, he was doing stuff that we haven't seen him do with pressure in his face. And I think that is something that we have called for 3 years. We're starting to see a little bit more of an edge that he's playing with. And it makes this team so much more fun to watch because there's talent across the board on the offensive side of the ball. And you've always known that Kirk Cousins has the capabilities to be a very good quarterback at this level. And he's starting to play with that like chip on his shoulder, a little bit more angry. And it's showing in like kind of I'm not gonna say he's shifted completely his style of play, but he's starting to do like baby steps in the right direction. I think if the Vikings want to make a run in the playoffs, he's going to have to learn to play with pressure in his face a little bit better than he has in years past. And we're starting to see that. And this is probably a great transition into the Cleveland talk because I think Kirk's going to have his hands full, and this offensive line that is playing a lot better, they're going to have their hands full compared to what they've seen already. I know Chandler Jones had 5 sacks the week before the Vikings played him. Myles Garrett is coming off I don't have the number in front of me, but I know he had a very solid performance against I don't even know if banged up is the right terminology to use about that Chicago offensive line. And I'm curious to see what Chris's thoughts are on that too, because I think every single national media news outlet was essentially calling for Matt Nagy to be fired the next day because the play calling was so horrific for Chicago. But I think some of that comes back obviously to that front four of Cleveland just being so dominant, and Myles Garrett. I guess I don't know what the stats are for Clowney either, but curious to see what your thoughts are on that because the Vikings actually have we've claimed a better offensive line this year, and I think they're going to have their hands full on Sunday.
Well, I will say, joining us now from Load the Box Bounds, all the way from, like 5 minutes away from my house is how far you live from me, Chris. Not too far. Also a Cincinnati, Middletown guy. He officiated my wedding. Everybody, Chris Paxidis, wonderful and marvelous just as much. Little small round of applause for Chris. Chris, your Browns are off to a good start. They lost to Kansas City, which we all thought was amazing until it turns out you guys are the only team Kansas City's been able to beat this year. So maybe that's a bad thing that you lost to Kansas City. But yes, Chris Land, I see you in the chat saying it's time for a friendly bet. We'll get into that here in a second. But Chris Paxidis is here tonight to just discuss this Vikings-Browns game with us. Figured it's, you saw the title of the video. It's a sibling rivalry between the Load the Box branches this week as mine and Jack's Vikings stay right there at home with Jack in Minnesota to take on the Cleveland Browns. So, Chris, welcome in. We're excited to have you, and we're excited to get your input on everything. But let's start off with it. So the Vikings are bragging about our offensive line finally being looking good, and I think there's a lot of scheming that goes into that. The Browns last season had a really good offensive line. I haven't watched a lot of Browns games this year, to be honest with you. Is it holding up to the hype? Is your guys' offensive line, just absolutely annihilating people? Because it was supposed to be best in the league this season. So should the Vikings fans be fearing that going into this Sunday?
So the biggest issue with the Browns offensive line right now is Jedrick Wills, their left tackle. He's every single game he's been injured. And it's been really frustrating to see it because he's one of those guys that, man, if he could stay healthy, he could be, I'm not saying he'd be the best left tackle in the game, but he'd be right up there. He'd probably be top 10, bare minimum top 10. But he's been really hurt. He's been banged up a lot. When he plays, he's great. When he's not there, it suffers, especially because we got I call him the sixth man. He's the guy who can play any position on the offensive line. Chris Hubbard, he's hurt. I think he's got a triceps issue, so he's been out past couple weeks. So we put in when Jedrick Wills went out, we put in a left tackle, a guy named Blake Hance. We call him on LTB Browns. Hi, my name is Blake Hance. In the playoff game, he met Baker Mayfield the day before the game in Pittsburgh, and said, "Hi, my name is Blake Hance. I'm blocking for you." So that's why we call him that. And he played a little bit of left tackle. But I think if healthy, the Browns offensive line continues to be one of the best in the NFL. They're going to give up a pressure. They're going to give up a sack. Nobody's perfect. And last week, they went up against the great Khalil Mack. I think Khalil Mack had two sacks on Baker. But other than that, I mean, it was a pretty clean game. So I think it's up there. I think it's still one of the best.
Yeah, so it being one of the best is good, but and I'm sure Jack, I'll pass it over to you here in just a second. It definitely seems like, at least to me, being a ravenous defensive savage like I am, I'm sitting here foaming at the mouth thinking Daniil Hunter and Everson Griffin are about to eat whoever your third string left tackle's lunch is, because anytime we play an injured offensive line, every football fan assumes that the backup is actually dog water, no good, and we're just gonna have our way with him for 10 sacks on Sunday. Jack, whenever you hear that one of Cleveland's premier pass protectors is gonna be injured this week, does that immediately, is that something that you're like, oh, that's got to be a big point of emphasis, or are you still thinking this Cleveland offensive line is just as scary as it is with the Stouters?
I think looking at it from a Vikings perspective, I think it makes you feel better about it, but it's still NFL caliber players, and I think you can look at it backwards from the Cleveland perspective too. If Rashad Hill is out there, and I think the Vikings and their fan base are also kind of having to deal with injuries along that offensive line. Rashad Hill wasn't supposed to be the starter; it was supposed to be their first round selection, and Christian Darrisaw. I was telling Jordan this before you joined, Chris, that today was actually his first full practice of the season, which is good news. But at the same time, I don't know if this is the game to throw your rookie left tackle out there against Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett. But just saying that, like, I'm excited to watch this game because I think all three of us can kind of agree on this, that Myles Garrett and Daniil Hunter are both they're similar style players, and they're both top 5. I know Myles Garrett gets kind of the credit that he deserves as a top 5 pass rusher. I don't think Daniil Hunter. I still see streams of people calling him Danielle Hunter. So I still think he has that underrated presence to his game where he doesn't. And obviously he missed the full season last year, so that doesn't help by any means. But those two are just, their styles are so similar. They're both just built similarly, and they're both, we use this word rather frequently, but they're both freaks. I think that's the best way to put it. And they're both just extremely talented pass rushers. I'm excited / nervous to watch both of them go up against possible banged up offensive lines. But I don't know if you want to keep talking about that, or can we kind of go to the next?
I was going to start talking about some matchups, and that's my key matchup this week. We're going to have to get pressure on Baker, but really where it starts, it's not on those tackle positions. To me, Michael Pierce and Dalvin Tomlinson are going to have to prove why we paid them all that money to come stop the run and clog up holes. And, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, I legit cannot tell you which one is the better running back, because they're both so good at what they do. And of course, I know you're a huge Nick Chubb guy. I probably am too, but Kareem Hunt looks really, really good every time he touches the ball.
Listen, let me just give you a stat real quick, because they both had over 80 yards rushing. Okay, last week both Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Nick Chubb went 20 for 22 carries, 84 yards. This is how good of a game Kareem Hunt had yesterday. And this is one of those where if one guy's having a bad game, you let the other guy do it. Kareem Hunt had 81 yards and a touchdown on 10 carries. So, and mind you, he's also the better pass catcher.
Yes.
Because he had 6 catches for 74 yards.
And that's where I start getting concerned, there is no, okay, let's take a breath, they're bringing in the pass catching back, because Kareem Hunt is still just as lethal getting a handoff as he is catching a pass. I mean, everybody remembers him from Kansas City as being this, all-pro running back. He's doing it in Cleveland too, folks. If you're not aware of it, get aware of it. Jack, I'll start with you on this one. How important of a matchup do you think that is, and how do you see the game going? Do you see the Vikings able to slow them down enough to get a win or stay in the game, or do you think Cleveland literally runs away with this one?
It's fun to look at this because kind of similar talking about the great pass rushers in Daniil Hunter and Myles Garrett. I think both these teams, their foundation are built very similarly, because the Vikings didn't have Delvin Cook last week, and Alexander Madison just showed he surprised me a little bit in like the pass catching realm. I didn't think he was. He always just looks like he's more of like a bruiser type running back, but he showed that he has that shiftiness that Delvin kind of plays with as well at times. So it's fun to see that there's two teams, and I don't think I'm ready to say that Alexander Madison is in that same tier as Kareem Hunt, but Nick Chubb and Delvin Cook are both top 5, top 6 running backs in the NFL, and both teams want to run the ball down your throats, and that's kind of the philosophy. And obviously, the Vikings fans are used to seeing that because they stole Kevin Stefanski from the Vikings, and I think I'm excited to see Kevin Stefanski call a game because he was one of those guys where a lot of people in Minnesota, when that weren't necessarily Zimmer fans, they were saying it was time to hand the keys over to Stefanski, and then obviously he leaves and he goes to Cleveland, and they have a playoff run last year with him. So I'm interested to see that. And I wanted to throw one other question here because I have the depth chart up right now for you, Chris. And so when the draft was going on, this is obviously Jordan and I always kind of find any excuse that we can to talk about the NFL draft. So when the Browns were drafting, I was like, their first 2 picks, I was blown out of the water. I was like, one, how in the heck did that kid from Notre Dame make it to the 2nd round? And I know
Jeremiah Wosu Koromoa.
I'll let you say it because I knew I was going to butcher his name. So it was him and then Greg Newsome. I was like, okay, those are 2 pieces that I thought right away are impact players that are going to improve your guys' defense. And it looks like the linebacker is still 2nd string. I actually follow a Browns beat reporter, and I know there's been like some competition going on at that position, but looks like Greg Newsome, did he not play last week? He has an out by his name, or the O by his name for now, but
so he played last week, got hurt during it, and he grinded through it last week, but yeah, he's listed out. And I was actually going to bring that up later on to you guys, is that y'all scare me when it comes to that passing game with Greg Newsome being out. I mean, yeah, we got good old lockdown Denzel Ward, but but you're going to be going against kind of an untested Greedy Williams, and he was the 2nd round pick of 2019, and he's been hurt. I mean, he didn't play it down last year, and he barely played his rookie year. So that Vikings passing attack scares me. But yeah, Greg Newsome, he's played very well. Talking about the draft, I was actually watching it with Jordan, and when they picked Greg Newsome, I was jumping for joy. Because I think we got one of the better cornerbacks in the draft, drafted late, and then you go in the 2nd round and get JOK. I couldn't believe it. I was floored.
Yeah, I don't want to spend.
It was the steal of the draft.
I don't want to spend too much time, but when I saw you guys because we didn't watch the 2nd round together, but when I saw you guys got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, I can say his name because he went to Notre Dame. When I saw you guys got Joke in the 2nd round and Newsome in the 1st, I was kind of like, that seems backwards. Like, I thought Joke would have been the guy that got that late 1st round love, and Newsome would have been the guy that slipped. But it stinks that Newsome isn't going to be in there. I mean, it stinks for you. For us, obviously, we love throwing the ball. Mike Zimmer doesn't, but I will say this is my next follow-up. I think this game, these are 2 very similar-minded coaches, in my opinion, and this is one of the last matchups that I'll bring up. And then Jack, of course, if you have any extras, you'll add on. But these coaches have similar mentalities of the game is won in the trenches. You establish yourself as the dominant force, running the ball. You get the run game going, and then you build the passing attack off of that ground game. Chris, I don't think I could tell you who your D tackles are going into Sunday. I know you guys used to have Danny Shelton, but he went to the Patriots.
It was a long time ago.
I know it was. I know Danny Shelton was a long time ago, but how do you view your linebackers and your front 7 as a unit going up against an Alexander Madison who's coming off of a 100+ yard performance? Oh, maybe even going up against Dalvin Cook, who I think is always when healthy. In that, is he better than Derrick Henry? He's always in that 3 or 4 guy race for who the best running back is. What does that do for you? How good is your front 7? How's your run defense?
So the Browns have yet to give up a 100-yard rusher. So I'm going to point that out. I'm not really worried about the Vikings rushing attack, whether it be Dalvin Cook or anyone else. I'm not that worried about it because I think the Browns can and should shut it down. I mean, they've got so far on the defensive line. Obviously, we know the big names. We know Clowney. We know Miles Garrett. Another guy you might know, might not know, Tack McKinley,
Yeah,
coming from Atlanta. He's another guy who's been playing a lot. Malik Jackson, um, Malik McDowell, this is his first year playing since college because he had a lot of issues in Seattle, and this is his kind of second slash last chance in the NFL. He's taking advantage of it, and he's playing on that defensive line. He's playing well. There are a couple other guys on the defensive line. Maybe not guys that are gonna jump out on paper, to you, but
absolutely.
I'm confident in that defensive line. Linebacker room, I'm not as confident in. Um, Anthony Walker, the Browns' starting middle linebacker, he got hurt in week 1, and he was put on IR. He will come back, but we'll see. He was their starting middle linebacker. Excuse me. JOK is kind of replaced him in that role, as well as Mac Wilson. Outside linebackers, you're looking at Malcolm Smith. He was the MVP when Seattle beat Denver in that Super Bowl. He had
Right.
that pick 6. Um, Also, you're looking at a guy named Sione Takitaki. He's been kind of dealing with an injury as well. He was out last week. Hoping he'll be back this week. We'll see. It's a young group. The linebackers are a young group, but I tell you what, if they play as good as JOK, it's going to be a fun day for the Browns.
Well,
But that's a big if.
what it
It's a
sounds
very
like
big
to
if.
me is that the Vikings' keys to victory, as presented by Chris Paxitas, attack an unproven secondary, as well as just run the ball all over banged up. It sounds like your defense is kind of banged up right now, and that's kind of what I'm picking up from it. But
The
Jack,
secondary and linebackers is not the defensive
yeah.
line.
Oh,
The
well,
defensive line is
I didn't mean to say defensive line. If I did, that's my fault. But sounds like your defense as a whole is just banged up. The defensive line,
Yes.
though, obviously having a good pass rush can solve a lot. Jack, what are some other keys to a Vikings win that you're looking for in this game? And then we'll start getting into like some game balls and some of the more traditional LTB Vikings stuff.
Yeah, I think this is going to come off as cliche as saying this game's going to be won in the trenches, but I think whoever wins the turnover battle in this game is going to have a huge advantage. And we're watching Kirk Cousins playing historically good football right now. Like, obviously, we just saw him surpass Peyton Manning with I think it was 17 straight games now with a 90-plus passer rating. He still hasn't thrown an interception this year. I don't remember when the last time he threw an interception was, but he is on the top of that list in terms of quarterbacks with streaks not throwing an interception. And I think Baker Mayfield, I'm a big Baker believer. When the Browns drafted him, I was like, that is the guy you draft to kind of turn around your franchise, because he has kind of what I like to explain what Kirk Cousins, I almost said didn't have, because I was so excited at the beginning of the show saying that Kirk Cousins is starting to flash that he has a little bit more of an edge to him. But the whole Baker ordeal where at Oklahoma where he planted the flag, and now you're seeing other teams like trying to like they're following that and doing it across the country. Like, he plays with a different type of swag that a lot of quarterbacks don't have. But with that, I think comes he's more willing to make some risky throws, and he's going to turn the ball over more regularly. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think Baker will be more likely to turn it over than Kirk Cousins would be. And I just think Kirk Cousins has to take advantage of, like what you were just talking about, that banged up secondary with the Justin Jefferson. I mean, I feel like every single game we go into now, there's some sort of LSU storyline to watch as well.
Yeah.
This one, there would be an even bigger one if I know Jarvis Landry got put on the IR, but obviously Odell Beckham, and there's other LSU guys
Greedy
in that
Williams
secondary.
in the secondary.
Was Grant Delpit an LSU
Yes.
kid too?
Yes,
I know
he
he's
was.
not a starter, but
no, he's a starter.
is he a starter? There on
Yeah.
ESPN it says he's not, but
Well, the thing is, Joe Woods likes to play a lot of dime defenses,
okay.
and so they put Grant Delpit in that kind of. They'll play a 3 high safety role, but Grant will kind of play kind of a safety / linebacker.
Okay.
He's got the
So,
J on Pulse treatment.
How has Baker been like with the turnover margin this year? Am I wrong in saying that he's more likely to make a mistake, or I know that's more going off of the past. I don't know how. I haven't watched a ton of Cleveland football this year,
so I can't speak on that just because I really haven't watched a lot of Kirk Cousins throw the ball this year. What I can tell you is Baker has 2 interceptions this year, both of them not his fault.
Okay.
One of them, his feet were literally taken out from under him as he was throwing the ball and it got picked against the Chiefs. The second one is the receiver, Anthony Schwartz, for the Browns, literally gave up on a route, stopped running, and it got picked. I can tell you that Baker has been the most accurate quarterback in the NFL this year so far. I can also tell you that he is one of the most accurate quarterbacks out of play action, and that play action is completely fueled by the Browns' 2-headed monster at running back. So
that surprises me that he's the most accurate passer. I think Kirk Cousins' completion percentage. I don't have it written down, but I think he's
I saw it last week. I don't know about coming into this week, but before he was, I think he had the highest QPR rating. I can't remember, but I was mind blown when I saw it.
Okay, so they're actually. So I just pulled it up here.
Okay.
Right now, it obviously changed a little bit. Dak Prescott is 1. This is just off of completion percentage.
Okay.
It makes things even more interesting. Teddy is 2. Kyler Murray's 3. And then Kirk Cousins is at a 73.9. And Baker Mayfield is at a 73.8. So it's nearly identical.
Well, it's settled then, boys. Cousins is the better quarterback. All right, that's how we do it. He's got a playoff win, and Baker. Oh wait, no, Baker does now. Shoot, that argument's invalid. That only works on my Bengals funds now. Always fun to crap on the team that broke our house week 1. Well, let's go ahead. Let's get into some predictions. Chris, me and you are probably going to have to give the same prediction twice tonight, as I'm going to be on Load the Box Browns. At what time does that start again? What time does that go live?
8:30 Eastern Standard Time.
Awesome. All right, so 8:30 if anybody wants to see me on Load the Box Browns. And then I'm going to get to the chat after we do some game balls and some game picks. So I'll go first, and then we'll go in a little triangle here. I'll let the guest go last. So I'm going to, Jack, I have offense for game balls this week, correct?
Yes.
So this week on the offensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with, and I'm going to regret saying this, but I'm going with Cousins. I just think this is the week that he finally, there are going to be people that are saying, I've never liked Cousins, but dang it, after this win, I have to like Cousins. I think he's going to go out there, like Chris said, a banged up, young, unproven Cleveland secondary. I don't know Cook's status. Jack, if you have an update on that, feel free to chime in.
He was limited today, and he seems like he seemed confident last week. It was kind of one of those things where it was weird on Sunday morning. Right. There was reports that all of a sudden came out. It's like, I had buddies text me saying, hey, Delvin's not playing. I was like, how do you know this? I know they said he's unlikely to play, but we're not going to know this until an hour and a half before kickoff. So I don't know how all these guys are saying that, but he was limited. He was out there at practice today. I don't know what that means. Limited could mean, hey, he put shoulder pads on and walked around the field, or it could mean he got into some team activities. So I don't know. I think we'll learn a little bit more as the injury report comes out throughout the week. But I think as it sits right now, he had a press conference this morning, and it sounded like he was confident that he was going to play, but a lot can change between now and Sunday.
Absolutely. Well, assuming that he plays, I still think that I'm hoping, but I think Mike Zimmel's smart. He knows, okay, look, we just had a lot of success kind of throwing the ball. Cleveland's money is on the line, and you know, I think that they're going to want to win this game by putting some points up and making Baker Mayfield go out there and do the same, forcing them to throw the ball, because that kind of seems like the key to beat Cleveland is make Baker throw the ball down 7 or more points. Don't let Hunt and Chubb just run the ball down your throat. Make them air the ball out. Make them beat you with Baker's arm. I'm not saying he's not capable of doing it. I'm just saying, you know, that's what the Chiefs did, and you always want to do what the Chiefs do, except for losing the last 2 weeks. But give me Cousins as for my game ball this week, just because I think he's going to go for over 300 again, and I think he has quite a few touchdown passes, and hopefully they keep that same game plan they had last week. Well, he can just kind of, you know, sit back, make his decisions, get the ball to his guys, and then the running game is just that nice little cherry on top of a really good passing attack led by Coke. As for a score prediction, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I told you last week, if they beat Seattle, they'll beat in Cleveland. I think they'll beat in Cleveland. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead, and this is just because there's nothing to lose. I'm going to say they're going to beat Cleveland 31-14. I think they beat Cleveland 3 possessions. Statement game.
Wow.
And the reason why is Cleveland, aside from Justin Fields' game, they played Kansas City really close, and then they played Houston relatively close. Only 10-point win over Houston, who I still think is one of the worst teams in the NFL. So I like to see the Vikings come out and kick the Dolls in early, and then just stay on top. And if every time Cleveland scores, I expect the Vikings to be able to do it. So give me a 3-possession win over Cleveland. Big time statement. Start sneaking into the top 10 power rankings things. We're 2-2. Then we play the Lions. Let's get back over 500. Let's keep this Super Bowl train running. All on the back of Cousins. Here we go. Let's see what happens. Jack, game ball on the defensive side, and who's winning this game?
Yeah, I'm not quite as confident in this one as you are, but I will say this. I'm happy this is a home game for the Vikings because we know it's not easy to play in that building. Kevin Stefanski said this in a press conference today, I believe, that he said this is going to be the loudest place where Cleveland has to play all year long. And they're coming off of a win last week where the stadium, I thought it sounded like this from just on TV, that it sounded like the roof was going to blow off of this place. Like, fans in Minnesota goes by the state of hockey all the time. I get in this argument with buddies that we're hockey-minded guys, but it doesn't matter where you are. We can be the state of hockey. Football is king. Football will always be king. And I think there's 3 guys on this show that will agree with that. So having a winning football team is huge to this state. And I'm going to kind of go, I took an easier one last week and giving it to Justin Jefferson. I don't think either of us usually like going the easy route with things. So I'm going to go and kind of go out on a whim here and say the Vikings get at least 1 interception, and it falls in the hands of a guy who is looked at as a leader, even though it's his first year on this roster. And I think it's time for Patrick Peterson to make a difference for this football team. And I think it's going to be a fun battle, especially if he's going up against Odell. I know Odell is fully back. I don't know. You can answer that, Chris, if he was on a pitch count. I remember reading prior to the Chicago game that they weren't going to have him on a pitch count. I don't know if anything happened during that game to change that, but I think Patrick Peterson needs to step up because somebody in this secondary has to step up. Harrison Smith would be the easier answer because he's been so good for so long. But Patrick Peterson also used to be like that, and we were all expecting a somewhat Terrence Newman type turnaround this season, and he hasn't been awful. I know Jamar Chase put him in a blender week 1. He had some ups and downs with DeAndre Hopkins, but I think he just being in this atmosphere, this defense is going to thrive off of that loud noise, and I think Patrick Peterson gets my game ball this week, and I that could just be me having like a bunch of optimism coming back into my body and thinking that, hey, maybe this defense is going to start to figure things out. But I'll give it to Patrick Peterson, and I have a final score. I don't think the Vikings are going to quite surpass 30 points, and I think it's going to be a lot closer than what Jordan said. So I have it right now as 27-24. It kills me letting the
Jack,
game be within 3
that.
points.
Don't do this.
We're not. Hey, we're not talking special teams. We're not bringing it up. I'm just we're ignoring that. That was my promise for the after that week 1 when we said positive things about the special teams unit. I was done with that. Hey, that's another thing that Cleveland has. It's a former Minnesota thing. Is Mike Prefer was also. I met him. I think I met him a couple of times when I was interning for the Vikings. But since he left, it was kind of a roller coaster ride with special teams, and we were excited after week 1 that everything kind of looked good, and then week 2 comes and Greg Joseph misses a 37-yard chip shot.
Former Brown.
Yeah. So we devoted our show to never talk about special teams in a positive manner again. So as much as it scares me doing this, I'm giving the Vikings a 27-24. I think it's going to be a thrilling game. I don't know if thrilling is the right word because I think both teams are going to be trying to shove it down each other's throats, but it's going to be entertaining. It's going to be loud again, and I think the Vikings have a good chance. It's going to be a hard battle, but I think they come out and they start the season 2-2.
Jack, tell me this, and I'm going to make you go out on a limb here, okay? Is it 24-24 with like 5 seconds to go in regulation and we kick the field goal, or is it 27-14 and they come back and we're able to hold them off?
I'll say, I'll just for the comfortability for myself, I'm not gonna say we win on a field goal at the end. Maybe they do. If they do, I think the state of Minnesota will be like, they'll be in awe. They won't know what hit them.
If we win on a field goal, there's no show next week.
Yeah,
That's just not. We won't come
taking
on.
it off. We're not talking about that.
We'll just tweet for like an hour, and that's all we'll do. I mean, none of it will be about the special teams.
Yeah,
all right,
I think let's hear what Chris has to say.
Absolutely.
Now,
So
you
Chris,
guys, do you want to preface it with your bet too that you had before you give him the mic?
Yeah. So Chris, me and Chris, as I said, we live very close to each other. We're pretty good friends, and we made a bet. There's a couple of bets we have, but we won't go into some of the more personal ones. But
No, go ahead.
the public bet is the Vikings and Browns. They play this week. It only happens once every 4 years. So if my Vikings beat Chris's Browns, Chris will be wearing my prized Tavarius Jackson jersey live on Load the Box Browns next week at 8:30 Eastern Time. But if my Vikings fall to Chris's Browns, then that ugly polo that Chris has on right now will be live on Load the Box Vikings on my body next week for the entire show. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Not to mention countless bragging rights. The last time we beat the Browns, they went 0-16 that season, so I didn't brag too much. It wasn't fun. I won't watch the game with Chris this year because I don't like watching football with Chris because the Browns are usually bad and it's not fun to watch football with a fan of a bad team. But yeah, so that's our bet. That's the public bet. Well, a little short on time, so I won't get into too much. But Chris, I got a feeling you're picking the Browns in this one. So tell me who's your game. But you can go anywhere. You can go kicker, punter, the second string tackle. Who's getting your game ball in this game, and then what's your score prediction?
So I think if I'm gonna go game ball, I'm gonna do 4 game balls, and it's gonna go to the entire defensive line.
Oh, okay.
Because I heard you guys talking about how the Vikings offensive line is starting to gel together a little bit. But I think for the Browns to really take over this game, I think that defensive line room really needs to step up, undo all that gelling, and sack Kirk Cousins. And I think Myles Garrett's got so much momentum after coming off a career day, having 4.5 sacks. Browns had 9 sacks against Chicago last week. Okay, 9. I'm going to put some of that on the awful game plan that Matt Nagy put together, but I'm going to put a lot of that on being Myles Garrett and Clowney and the rest of the guys. So I'm going to give the whole defensive line room my game ball. I think this is the time where they step up. I think they're going to pressure Kirk Cousins. I'm going to go ahead and say if I put a gun to my head, say final score, I'm going to say Browns 30, Vikings 21.
A sneaky 2-possession win.
But I am a little scared because it is in Minnesota. Minnesota is a different team at home than they are away. Browns got to utilize that silent count. If they don't, they're screwed.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna give my final thoughts on the evening. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. You'll still be on here while Jack gets the Vikings fans all rowdy and ready to run through walls and whatnot. But my final thoughts on the evening are gonna go something like, the Vikings. I'm trying to think of how to stout this out. The Vikings are in a must-win situation, and I think it's just that way. I don't think 1-3 is good enough to get you to the playoffs. I think that you gotta, after that 0-2 hole, the Vikings have to stay desperate. They have to stay hungry, and they've got to get up to 2-2, and then they can start maybe slacking off just a little bit against Jared Goff and the Lions, but they don't look too shabby either. So I'm not gonna count my chips before I've won them, or count my chickens before they hatch, whatever the saying is. But they've got to stay hungry. I think that this is a week where you've got them backed up against a wall, and they need to come out swinging. They need to really establish, look, we are a 2-2 team. There's a good chance we should have been 4-0, but we are 2-2. We started 500, and then they need to keep moving on. The Browns, I don't know if they have that desperation, just because they're 2-1. If they lose, okay, they're 500. If they win, okay, cool, we're 3-1. And there's also a storyline that you could go into of, it's Mike Zimmer versus Kevin Stefanski. It's the head coach versus his old OC. There's so many fun storylines in this game, not to mention me living in Ohio, the Vikings fan who lives in Ohio versus all of his Browns buddies that he knows and stuff. So I'm excited for this game. I was super hyped to have Chris on, and I can't wait for 4 years from now to have you on again. Oh, God forbid, later this year in February having you on again if we meet each other then. But
If God forbid should that happen, we're probably not going to talk to each other for about a month.
no, we won't. We won't. We won't. We've already talked about this because
That'd be two of the two fan bases that would take a loss way harder than any other fan base.
Yeah, they would.
It's funny. I told my bosses at work, I said, God forbid, should the Browns make it to the Super Bowl, I'm taking the next week or two off of work for one of two reasons. If they win, I'm going to be partying in Cleveland. Like, I'll literally drive up that night and drive up to Cleveland and party for 2 weeks. And if they lose, I'm going to sit in a corner of my basement and cry. Either way, not coming into work.
Hey, Chris knows about sitting in basements and crying, especially for me, all the heartbreak and whatnot. But I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about sadness, Chris. I know we didn't, buddy. I'm sorry.
You don't know what that feels like.
I'm super, to wrap my thoughts up, I'm super excited for this game. I want to see a hungry and desperate Minnesota team come out and shock the Browns, who are, everybody was putting the Browns in the Super Bowl this year. So come out, shock the world again. Handle your business, and then let's go on. Let's move on to Detroit, and let's pick everybody up, because right now I think everybody wants to be in on the Vikings in the fan base, but there's still a lot of people that just aren't letting themselves dive headfirst into the craziness of this season. So this is the week where we get them to embrace it. So Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Your pick is incorrect. Jack, I'm going to pass it over to you now. I keep doing you over here because you're on this screen, but you're that way. You're over here. Jack, go ahead. Get me ready to run through a wall. Get me hyped up. Let's go get a dub.
Yeah, I'll start out by saying thanks to Chris as well. It was fun having on. It's always fun having conflicting viewpoints, even though it doesn't really feel like these teams' viewpoints are very different, because everything that you say about the Browns, I feel like the same way about the Vikings. The key to this game is Daniil Hunter and Everson Griffin, and then the two meaty boys is the nickname that they were given by Eric Kendricks, is they have to get pressure on Baker and force him to turn the ball over. So they're two built from the top, or I can't say that saying right now, but they're built so similarly, and they want to do the same exact thing. Their game plans are going to be a lot similar, but I'm going to do this because I don't think people are starting to talk about him, but I'm advocating talking about Kirk Cousins, pounding my fist on the table for Kirk Cousins on this show for the last 3 years. I think we've seen that he's been a very solid quarterback. He's been a good, not great quarterback. He hasn't quite been able to get to that great level because of if he has a clean pocket, he's been a great quarterback, but he hasn't had a clean pocket, and the Vikings have not had even average. It's been below 25th offensive line for all 3 years he's been here, I believe. And now it's starting. I think they had I sent out a tweet this week where it was a GIF with the guy from Step Brothers with glasses, looking cross-eyed, because I saw a tweet that said, in terms of PFF offensive line pass blocking efficiency, the Minnesota Vikings offensive line ranks 4th through the first 3 weeks, which is an astounding thing. I never thought I would see that, especially with the emergence of Ali Udo. We know what that we have with Brian O'Neill out at right tackle. And if Christian Darrisaw comes in and even proves to be an average caliber left tackle as a rookie, I think that's the key to this Vikings season being turned around, because we've seen what Kirk Cousins can do from a clean pocket. He's starting to play with an edge. I wanted to bring this up too. If you haven't seen this yet, go on the Vikings Twitter page, and there was Justin Jefferson was mic'd up for the game, and he's on the sideline talking to Adam Thielen, but Kirk Cousins is sitting in between them, and Jefferson's like, man, this place is lit with fans. And Kirk, I'm not kidding you, is sitting there just staring straight ahead with his helmet on like this. And he's not acknowledging either of them. And I was like, I don't know whoever did whatever they did to get him pissed off like that, but thank you for doing that, because he's playing elite level football right now. Anytime you're in the same sentence of guys like Peyton Manning and Steve Young with passer ratings, you're doing something right. So I'm looking for Kirk Cousins to continue his hot streak. He really, I mean, the one thing that cannot happen is this game is there can't be a Kirk Cousins game where we talked about the Atlanta game last year where they come out and lay kind of an egg. That can't happen. Kirk Cousins has to continue to keep his foot on the gas, continue to sling it downfield, and continue to improve at his mobility and playing with pressure in his face. So I think that continues, and I think that's why the Vikings have the slight edge in this game, according to my personal thoughts. But I think the Vikings come out on top. US Bank Stadium is going to be rocking once again. I think that's going to help boost this defense. I think the Vikings get out to 2-2 on the season, and I'll leave you with this. 2-2 is the same exact record that the Minnesota Vikings started with in that 2017 season. So if they can get to 2-2, I like their chances. I know it's a tougher schedule, but for the most part, getting to 2-2, I think that's a season-saving move if they can do that. And most importantly, Skol as always.